There is a bird on the ground at the edge of your yard. It is not moving much, its feathers are fluffed, its eyes are half closed, and it is singing. Not the full territorial declaration of a healthy bird on a spring morning, something quieter, something slower, but it is singing. And if you have ever seen this and felt that it deserved more of an explanation than you were ever given, you were right. Welcome back to Feathrix. Subscribe before you leave because what you are about to learn will change the way you hear every bird that sings in your yard from this morning forward. Today, we are going into one of the least studied and most quietly devastating behaviors in the natural world. The songs birds sing at the end. What they are, why they happen, what the science has found and what it has not been able to explain, and what it means about the sounds filling your yard every single morning. Stay until the end because the last section is the one that changes everything, not just about birds, about what song is for in the first place. Number 1. What the death song actually is. It does not have an official scientific name. Researchers who have documented it refer to it in different ways: terminal vocalization, end-of-life singing, late-stage song behavior. The language is careful and clinical because the science is still catching up to something that observers in the field have been noting for a very long time. What it describes is this: birds that are injured, severely ill, or in the final stages of life will, in many documented cases, continue to produce song. Not alarm calls, not distress calls, song. The same structured, melodic, species-specific vocalizations they produce during the breeding season or at dawn. Produced in circumstances where singing serves no obvious biological purpose, where there is no territory to defend, no mate to attract, no rival to warn off. The bird is buying, and it is singing anyway. This has been observed across a remarkable range of species: American robins, song sparrows, wood thrushes, cardinals, warblers of multiple species. The behavior is not limited to one family or one region. It appears across songbirds broadly, and it appears consistently enough that researchers who spend time in the field stop being surprised by it and start being troubled by a question they cannot easily answer. Why? Number 2. What the science actually says about why birds sing when dying. The most straightforward biological explanation is hormonal. Song in birds is driven significantly by testosterone and by the hormonal cascade of the breeding season. In theory, a bird under extreme physiological stress might experience hormonal fluctuations that trigger song behavior involuntarily, the brain producing song the way it produces other automatic responses, not as a choice, but as a discharge of a system under pressure. This explanation is unsatisfying to most researchers who have actually watched it happen, because the song is not random or chaotic in the way an involuntary discharge might be expected to present. It is structured. It follows the bird's normal song pattern. In some documented cases, it is more complete and more precisely formed than the casual songs the bird produced when healthy. A wood thrush observed by researchers in a late stage of window collision injury sang what the observing ornithologist described in her field notes as the most complete version of the species' full song sequence she had recorded from that individual across 3 years of observation, produced in the last 2 hours of the bird's life, on the ground, unable to stand properly, singing. The hormonal explanation does not account for that, and researchers are honest about what they do not yet know.
Number 3. The dawn chorus and what it has always been. Every morning before sunrise, the birds in your yard begin to sing. The dawn chorus. You have heard it so many times it has become part of the silence, the way traffic becomes part of silence in a city. It is there before you are fully awake, and it fills the space before the day begins, and most people never stop to ask what it actually is. Here is what it actually is. The dawn chorus is one of the most energetically expensive things a bird does. Singing requires significant caloric output. At dawn, a bird has not eaten since the previous afternoon. Its energy reserves are at their lowest point of the day. Light levels are too low to forage effectively, and yet Every singing bird in your yard is producing its loudest, most complex, most sustained vocal performance of the entire day at exactly this moment. From a pure survival standpoint, it makes very little sense. You are burning your most limited resource at your most vulnerable moment to produce something that costs everything and feeds nothing. Researchers studying the dawn chorus have proposed multiple explanations: mate attraction, territory reinforcement, signaling health and genetic quality to rivals and potential mates. All of these are plausible, and all of them are probably partially true, but none of them fully explains the specific timing, the specific intensity, or the specific complexity of what happens at dawn. The bird is not just announcing itself, it is doing something that requires everything it has at the moment it has the least to give, and it does it every single morning without fail. When you hold that next to the behavior of a bird singing in its final hours, something shifts. The dawn chorus begins to look less like a territorial broadcast and more like something a species does when it needs to sing more than it needs to conserve energy, when the singing matters more than the cost.
Number 4. What researchers observed and could not explain. In 2019, a research team studying wood thrush populations in a fragmented forest habitat in Maryland documented something during a routine monitoring session that made it into their published notes not as a data point, but as an observation they felt compelled to record without knowing what to do with it. An adult male wood thrush that had been banded and tracked for 2 breeding seasons was found on the forest floor showing signs of severe injury consistent with a predator strike. The bird was alive, but non-responsive to approach. Over the following 90 minutes, the research team remained with the bird and documented its behavior. In that 90-minute window, the bird produced song on 4 separate occasions. The songs were complete, structured, recognizably the full song sequence of that individual, which the team had recorded extensively over 2 seasons and knew well. The 4th song, produced approximately 20 minutes before the bird died, was the longest continuous song sequence the team had on record from that bird, longer than any breeding season recording, more complete than any dawn chorus recording. The team published their observation. They noted that they had no adequate biological explanation for the behavior. They noted that the song appeared to serve no functional purpose in the context of the bird's condition. They noted that it was complete, and then they moved on to the next data point, because that is what science requires. But the observation is in the record, and it sits there in the way that certain observations sit, waiting for a framework that does not yet exist.
Number 5. The parallel that is difficult to ignore. I want to be careful here, because the science does not make this claim, and I am not going to make it for the science. But I am going to say what many people who spend time with birds already feel, and what the observations make difficult to entirely dismiss. Humans, at the end of life, often return to music. People who have lost language to dementia will sing songs from their youth with perfect recall when they can no longer string a sentence together. Hospice workers document this with a consistency that has generated its own body of research. The music stays when almost everything else goes. It is one of the last things to leave. What this suggests about music, about song, is that it is not simply a communication tool. It is not just a signal sent from one organism to another, carrying information about territory or health or genetic fitness. It is something more fundamental than that. Something that persists when the biological systems that govern survival and reproduction have already begun to fail. Something that the organism returns to, not because it is useful, but because it is, in some way that we do not yet have the right language for, necessary. The wood thrush on the forest floor, singing its most complete song in its final 20 minutes, is not doing something that our current biological framework fully explains. Neither is the person in the hospice bed singing a song from 1962 that everyone around them thought they had forgotten. Both of them are doing something that looks, from the outside, less like communication and more like completion, like finishing a thing that needed to be finished.
Number 6. what this means about the songs in your yard every morning. The bird at your feeder right now has a song, a specific individual version of its species song that is slightly different from every other member of its species, shaped by where it learned to sing and who it learned from, and what it has encountered in the years since. That song is one of the most complex things it produces. It costs more than almost anything else it does, and it does it every morning at the moment of lowest reserves and greatest vulnerability. That song will be one of the last things it does. Not tomorrow, not soon, hopefully, but one morning, somewhere, the bird that visits your feeder will sing for the last time. And based on everything researchers have documented, that last song will likely be one of its most complete, one of its most fully realized, produced at the end of everything for reasons that biology has not finished explaining, in the same way it has been produced every morning of that bird's life. The next time you hear the dawn chorus, the next time the robin starts before the light is fully there, the next time the cardinal sends his song across the cold morning air before you have even had your coffee, listen differently. Not with sadness, with something closer to recognition. What you are hearing is not background. It is not ambient noise. It is a living creature putting everything it has into something that costs everything and asks for nothing in return, every single morning, until the morning it cannot. That is what song is. And now you know. Tell me in the comments, have you ever heard a bird singing in a way that stopped you, that felt different from the usual morning sounds, that you could not explain? I want to hear about it. I read every one. I will see you in the next one.